Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth episode of Season 2 of Powered by You, a podcast produced by RBKC in collaboration with Morley Radio. My name is Zino and I'm your host. In today's fast-paced world, the rising cost of living has been a concern and still is a concern for many people within different communities. And throughout this episode, hopefully we will address and explore the various factors that contribute towards the cost of living and how we could benefit from the tips and useful services that are currently being provided in this borough to maneuver within these difficult times, I'd say. I'm joined with Sheraine Williams, who works for a local organisation called Response. Thank you for joining me, Sheraine.
Thank you for inviting me, Zino.
We also have Hamza from the local community.
It's good to see you again, Zino.
Thank you both for coming. Really appreciate it. How is everything, Sheraine? It's been a while since we last spoke.
Yes.
We've been talking back and forth, trying to get this done. This episode hasn't been easy to plan because everything's been busy, but we're finally here.
We are.
You know, what's been happening with Response? And for those that don't know, can you give us a little background information?
So Response is a community centre based in RBKC in the Earls Court ward. It's actually called Response Community Projects, and it's been in existence since 1978. And it was set up as a base for many writers because Earls Court was known for, writers and literary. And it's always been a very popular destination for a lot of people. And I went to an event yesterday and there was a lady I'd met, and her auntie had actually worked in Response in the 80s. So it's reached people far and wide. And then it morphed into a bookshop, I'd say probably around the 90s or so. And it continued to be a bookshop, and COVID hit. And then it was decided that the books were no longer needed. So I took over in 2021, September, and I've been running the centre ever since.
Okay, cool. That's a lot of stuff that's been happening, a lot of transitions, I suppose.
Definitely.
What's happening with the books now? Are they still accessible to
the
local community?
The books have gone. We've got just a handful that's still there. We've got, a lot of history as well about the organisation. But, as Response Community Project stands now, I'm the Chief Executive Officer. And, Earls Court is just an amazing place to work. And also the community is vibrant. The community, they're powerful. The community, there are many different kind of levels of, financial advantage and disadvantage in the area. But, it's just a great place to work, and also it's great to know people who live there also.
Ah, interesting. So how would you say Response has been responding to the cost of living crisis that we're currently in at the moment?
Okay, so we have a homework club which runs 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday. And we assist families where English may be a second language, with supporting their children with homework and social skills, soft skills, mentoring, confidence building, with art projects, etc., etc. So that helps parents because that side of it is free. We don't charge. We also have a food bank, which is available to the community on 2 days a week, which is on a Thursday and a Saturday. That is a solid resource. We get people coming from all over the neighbouring boroughs to access food, and we have an open door policy. We don't ask for much apart from basic details so that we know where and who we're servicing. We also have an Arabic school that runs at Response. We are an open door, as I said, so we signpost people who come in to services that can benefit them or give them the help and support that they need. We also encourage a lot of people not to feel shame or not to feel as though them accessing services from organisations that are actually built to help people, they don't feel that they shouldn't be reaching out for help, because without people reaching out for help, these organisations wouldn't exist. And in some instances, some organisations need to be more forthright in offering, help to people also. We also offer support services to individuals and have been doing that for years as well. And it's just a hub with many different characters and many different people.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So since you're there at the centre and you oversee all of the operations, from your personal interactions, what is the most accessed service within the response umbrella, would you say, that you've actually caught on saying this is the most accessed, whatever it may be? It could be a food bank, it could be Arabic lessons, or it could be homework clubs, or it could be accessing simple necessities such as the internet cafe that you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
What has highlighted something what is the main?
So I would say, in terms of non-verbal need, it's food. So people come and they queue up and they access the food. So we have a really good word of mouth system, and we tend to have different people, different stages coming to access food on the Thursday and the Saturday. The Saturday food bank is in conjunction with Karma Bank and the Earls Court Community Aid Group. So we're helping people who may not be able to access food in the weekday, but they're able to access it on a Saturday. So kind of balancing up the two, we are kind of spreading out the need in that way. I'd also say our homework club, because we have a high percentage of families who have English as a second language. So they're unable to afford, say, tutors to assist their children with the educational support they need. So that's another thing that we've noticed, coupled with the Arabic school as well. There is a strong need for Arabic lessons for adults and children. And our centre helps families do that. I would also say ESOL lessons, that is definite. There's a high demand for ESOL lessons, and that demonstrates that a lot of people who are coming into the country for whatever needs, whether it's they're refugees or whatever their needs are, they are wanting to upskill to have a better chance of surviving within this country and in this climate also. So we assist people across many different spectrums.
That's actually interesting that you mentioned, but I just want to bring out the food bank service that you have running. Is it return customers or service users? What's the right term to use for the people that would access the food bank? And also in terms of having an action plan or an outcome, because if you see people coming back and keep coming back and just keep giving them food, which is good, it does address the need of the crisis that we're in. But are you analysing why they come into the food bank and then trying to tackle those issues? It might be employment related, maybe various different reasons. So if there is something that's in place right now that would actually prevent them from being reliant on the food bank on a continuous basis, because that's the last thing you'd want to do, is to not give them support whilst they're coming, if that makes sense. So it would be nice to see them coming to a food bank, but at the same time figuring out how to be less dependent on needing a food bank.
Well, that's an interesting question, Zino, and there are many different answers I could give. But in the instance of our food bank, I think there's a high percentage of older people who access food banks who might be retired, may not be working, and are literally struggling on their pensions, on their current pensions and their support and stuff. So we have quite a lot of old people who may have lost a lot of weight, and they aren't looking after themselves. So because we provide a very good standard food bank in regards to the products and the fresh produce that we give out and stuff, we've managed to allow people to access good food and at least once a week, because the food that sometimes we have abundance. It depends on the actual deliveries that we get and the organisations that we can access or that deliver us food. Like say, for example, this week, the Hilton Hotel in Olympia, they delivered us about 15 boxes of amazing food, and that was given to us on behalf of their employees who had put in their own funds, and they had gone out and they'd bought food for charity basically. And luckily we were found by the Hilton Hotel, and they even delivered us the boxes. They came yesterday, delivered us a whole load of boxes of good, excellent quality food, and they even threw in some pillowcases for people, who might need pillowcases, because, everything is really, really expensive, and you might question, pillowcases, but believe you me, there are people who don't have anything, so we support them any way we can.
That's a good insight to see where the support is coming from. So you mentioned old people,
yes,
the elderly,
that's right. Yep,
so 50 plus, I would say.
Definitely, I'd say 50 plus. I'd also say single men. We get a lot of single men coming through our doors, some who might not feel comfortable coming through, but because we have good relationships with people throughout the week, and we have an open door policy, we're able to encourage them to access the food bank because their benefits again are low. And in speaking to some of the men in the area, they are definitely struggling to make ends meet, so they need to access.
Do you get any young people coming through?
Young people, it's funny you say that, because recently we've had a number of local hostels come in and access our food bank, and they're servicing like 11 to 15 people in different destinations or different locations, and they're coming to us to access food for their residents. So there's something that is fundamentally kind of not adding up here in regards to the support that organisations such as hostels, the pressures that they're experiencing, because one would think that there would be a budget for this type of activity. But, things are hard. Budgets are being cut. Funding is sometimes hard to source, and capacity within organisations is also an issue also. So you find that a lot of the bulk of the work kind of falls on the hands of the few, as opposed to the many.
Do you think, just thinking out loud here, people might use a food bank because A, food is too expensive, but also B, is to actually keep hold of the other needs they might not want to lose, for example, such as internet bills or their phone contract. So if they think, if I get access to a food bank, I can save some money that would go towards the gas bill or the electricity bill. Is that one way of looking at it, or do you think there's other reasons as to a food bank may be accessed?
Okay, well, I could say, how long is a piece of string, really? Because in some instances, you've got people who may be in debt, so they've taken responsibility of their lives, and they're trying to pay out that debt, and then they might be left with, say, £5 a week, and that benefit money has to stretch for 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So, I think the best thing is, like we understand here, each person walking through your doors has their own story.
Has their own story, their own needs, their own journey, and their own destination.
Yeah.
And we tried to balance that off so that at least we encourage families to. Don't get me wrong. There's a very high focus on education in Earls Court, and that's something that I found out when I worked here. There were families with high aspirations for their children, but I think that the food bank issue is one where we could stand back and judge, but it's one where there is a high percentage of food waste from supermarkets and other organisations, and instead of it ending up on a landfill, at least it has the potential to feed the 5,000 per se, you know. And I think it's important that there is an emphasis on assisting people educationally, assisting people morally, so that they have the strength to go into education or go into other areas of employment, volunteering, etc., where there is a progressionary level to actually assist them in gaining the confidence that they need to become who they might envisage themselves to be. And if they don't have that type of confidence, it's about looking at their skills and looking at what they do, and whether, you know, we include them into our organisation so they can build skills. So then we can say, like, okay, you know, you're a really good communicator. Have you thought about sales, or have you thought about, you know, whatever job industry or whatever it is? But essentially, I think education is extremely important, and also being able to galvanise yourself enough in whatever situation that you're in, which can be really, really tough, because there are people who have different needs I won't go into, but somewhere, you know, it's really, really affected them.
Talking about effect, which ways would you say it's impacted people's well-being, and just, you know, just things where we would think you can see physical change, that it doesn't really take them to tell you, that you can just tell?
I would say hygiene in some instances. Hygiene. So we received a fund from an amazing charity, actually 2 charities, amazing charities, and we were able to buy household hygiene items for people. So that was sanitary ware, that was shower gel, that was shavers, you know. And it's funny because I was in Boots and I purchased a bulk of shavers, and I went to the actual the placing of it in Boots, and it was like, I think £17 for a box that I'd given away to families. So I was just startled at the price of goods, you know. But it's just been so, the price of goods have gone up so exponentially, that unless you're kind of going around to each outlet, whether it's Boots, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Lidl, and you're actually scanning all of the prices around the store and keeping up with that, then you can actually have an idea of how hard it is. But I also think the cost of bills as well. Do you remember the winter time? We had the gas and electric.
Yeah, I remember that.
Pressures.
That was a big thing.
It was.
People were just thinking, what are we going to do? But
they were in despair. And if you're on a prepayment meter, you know, I know people who were like using candles to heat their homes. So it's like, I think before was it heat or eat?
Really? That was the saying?
Or eat was the saying. And this year was even more real for so many different people. So this is where they would spend money on their prepayment meters. The money would run out. And if they couldn't put more money onto it, they wouldn't be able to wash, which affects their hygiene, which affects their, you know, their feeling of self.
So how would you say the cost of living impacts different areas or different communities that we live amongst? So you might be in a different area, but you might be having a different experience. So do you think that's a thing, or do you think it's just not? It's not as we perceive it to be?
As area specific, I think it's become even more apparent that it doesn't matter the area that you live in. You know, rents in London are extremely high. We've had stories where some private landlords were, you know, increasing rents by 50%, you know, and then we had parents or families in despair, you know, thinking about their education of the children, thinking about, you know, leaving the families or friends that they'd kind of, you know, made support networks with behind. There are so many different elements.
Right. So there's so many, like you said, so many different elements that would revolve around hygiene, food necessities, education, and upskilling yourself.
Yeah.
Having to choose whether your child or even yourself can go to a certain class, whether to just cut off certain
activities and stuff like that.
Yeah. So how would you advise someone to alleviate the burden of the cost of living crisis? Or actually, let me divert this to my other guest, Hamza. So, what's your view on this? What tips and pointers from your lived experience would you say?
In ways to save money?
Just navigate.
I think you need to have an overall understanding of what's coming out of your account for the month. So you put in away the basics, like your rent money, your essentials in terms of shopping, your bills, and then whatever finances you've got going on. I think once you've got that navigated, then you can see what you can eliminate from that, and from there on just work on and try to save whatever you can, in times like this.
So obviously I don't want to know too much details, but is there anything that you've actually thought about eliminating or have eliminated within your journey since it started with all of us actually? So it's not just directed at you, but we've all are experiencing this crisis that's currently taking place, and we've all thought about, okay, this has to be put on pause and this can carry on, but this has to stop. I can't be doing this. I have to swap this for that. So yeah, what's your experience, Hamza, with this?
For me, I would say, Netflix is out the window at the moment.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, obviously, I need to kind of brainstorm and see what else it may be that I don't really need,
Do you eat out as much, or is that something?
That's a good question. To be honest with you, I feel like I'm pretty responsible with it, not like other people who may be at my age. But I do try to, let's say, keep my limits within the month, Obviously, there's times when you feel like you want to treat yourself, we're all human beings at the end of the day. But I think you just need to kind of, let's say, live within your means and not try and go overboard. And then before you know it, you've got something that needs to be paid for, and then you're thinking where the money's going to come from. And I'll tell you what, you look at the amount that comes out from just this one delivery, you're talking between, let's say, £20-30, you put that towards shopping, you're feeding quite a few people there,
But do you feel like when you go to a supermarket, you buy 3 items and it comes up to £10, you're thinking, how is that £10? Or how has these 2 items come up to a £5? When a £5 used to get you some things, a £10 used to get you a half a bag full, 20 quid used to get you a few bags, but now 20 quid gets you 1 bag. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of thing that we're seeing, but it's an illusion because we're in denial, thinking that can't be right. It's just, even though you're not in, you're not, some people might not be to the level where they're going to food banks or they're cutting out certain electricity bills, but they're still experiencing what their money for value is, and they know that it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel right, and sometimes you got to accept that it is what it is. It's a hard truth, I suppose, to actually connect with.
Yeah, I think market share in regards to the supermarkets, is constantly changing. So Tesco holds the biggest market share, and you've got Lidl, and you've got
Sainsbury's?
No, Lidl and Aldi.
Aldi, yeah.
Constantly chipping in to try and get more of the share of the market in regards to customer spending and stuff like that. So Lidl and Aldi were always seen as that alternative. This is before the pandemic, where people could go and kind of get more value for their money, and and I think it still stands today. Some even wealthier people shop at those supermarkets because they understand or know that you save as much as you can in whichever way. But I think that before COVID, there's always been an issue with supermarket prices continuing to increase. But I think now, I'd say within the last year, it's out of hand to the point where, as we were discussing earlier, before you could have walked in a supermarket and picked up some eggs for £1, whereas now, like, if you want a decent egg, it's a pack of 6 eggs, it costs like £3.50.
That's if you find any.
And exactly, that's if you find any. And it's like, you can't consistently keep on buying cheap food at poor quality. There are things that you kind of have to have at a decent quality, whether it's organic or whether it's, just being grass-fed or whatever it is. So I think it depends on where you're at in regards to quality, that you kind of spend more, you get less in your bag. But I think now across the board, even basic items such as onions, eggs, milk, for some people even a bottle of wine, whatever it is that they have, they are leaving certain supermarkets with less and less bags, which is a big dent, because you'll put all of these items into your trolley, and because costs change sometimes daily,
So you can't
by the
keep
time you
track,
get to
isn't it, at times?
by the time you get to the till, if you've got a certain budget, some people are putting items back, or they're leaving in shock. I've seen some of our users come in and talk about that. So yeah, it's tough times.
But now,
That is tough.
I just want to add, sorry, but now they've got the, is it the scan and go? Is it called scan and go? I'm not sure what shops do them, but it's where you're holding this sort of device and you're just scanning as you're shopping. So I think it's a clever idea, because you kind of have an idea of, okay, maybe I've hit my limit, or you know what, maybe I should take this out. Whereas obviously, as you mentioned, you go to the actual till and he's like, oh, okay, 40 quid, bloody hell, So I think these kind of tactics do help. And
But it's also the convenience stores mainly that, because you get those in the larger stores, the larger supermarkets, where there's more kind of temptation to buy other household stuff as well, because, it's kind of like a warehouse full
options, you could
of,
say.
Yeah. People used to go to Poundland for that, but now Poundland is not even Poundland.
Poundland isn't even Poundland.
It's been like that for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Same
the
product, but just more expensive prices.
Yeah, that's the reality, isn't it? So throughout this this whole experience, and we've all seen the impact it has on us. Throughout your experience as Response, what would you say? Is there any group that is the core of, let's just say maybe a group that's been disproportionately impacted? And maybe how, if there is a group or a community, how would we help those that fall under that bracket?
I would say that there are many different groups, and I know that it sounds quite broad.
But any particular that stand out?
Well, the thing is, in Earls Court, there's just like a mixture of people with mental health needs, with addictive needs, whatever, you name it, across the spectrum. People living in hotels, families on low income, and then, as I said, you have people who are wealthy. The spectrum is so vast and broad, and what we're finding is that people along the spectrum are experiencing some sort of, you could say, inverted commas, hardship. Obviously, the most disadvantaged would be experiencing a lot more. In terms of the question that you've posed, I think BAME groups are needing a lot of assistance and help. Obviously, you find that certain cultures like to cook food, so they need your, like your onions, your basic ingredients and stuff like that, because they cook every day or every other day or whatever and whatnot. And then we might have some others who might access ready meals, etc. So, it kind of, the need varies from group to group. And also, I've actually had to assist other groups within our group remit with leaving food bags for them so that they can have food by the time the centre closes. So it's all conversational. And I think that the needs of people who are more disadvantaged, it's far and wide. It's far and wide.
Do you think people that people that don't tend to cook, do you think they're the ones suffering from the cost of living more? Well, it makes sense if you would think if you're cooking food from scratch, you'd actually get things at a cheaper rate. But then again, some people might not have the time to do that because of they're just busy, or they got commitments, or they're a carer for someone. So I think different generational groups might have a different experience with that, because I know some people who are my age might not be, confident making something for themselves or their family members, but then you get some that might have the skills to actually go in and make a dish or prepare lunch for the next day to take into work. So it's a different range of needs, and if you don't have the skill set, then it's gonna dictate how your experience is gonna be essentially. What's your view on that?
Okay, well, I also think that like family plays a big part, you know, because if you've got a family where there's always, you know, a full pot of food and stuff, if you are going through hardship, for example, you may not need to access a food bank because you've always got a place that you could go for a meal, you know, that, you know, we're family orientated people. But I think as time has gone on and people, you know, are trying to become independent in this environment, that independence comes at a cost.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I feel like we're gonna go off topic, but I really want to focus on it because I reckon here, in the society we live in, it's almost you get empowered to not depend on no one, do your own thing. But then when you get something, it comes at a cost of something else, right? So when you have unity and you have that connection, the strong community network, if you need, for example, back in the day, people used to tell me if they needed eggs, let's go to the neighbours. Knock on the door, do you have an egg or two? Or do you have sugar? I run out of sugar. But if you do this now, your neighbour will just tell you, can you go away? Or I don't know you.
Door.
Yeah, they wouldn't answer the door. They wouldn't.
Who are you?
Is that your experience, Hamza?
No, I've got friendly neighbours, to be honest with you. But no, I agree. I mean, I think if you don't have that unity, then everything's just kind of dispersed in different ways. And I think, as you mentioned, regarding like food at home, it's a big thing, you know, because a lot of people don't have it these days. And I feel if maybe even parents played a role, as in to maybe get the kids to do some sort of duties in the kitchen, and this way it kind of prepares them for when they're older and let's say they're living alone or they have their own family, they have life skills there already preps for them, rather than 18 years old, okay, what are we having tonight? Pizza again, you know? So
yeah,
it's all about handling these kind of situations in the right way.
And also, like we were talking about costs and stuff like that. So obviously around COVID, like there was a huge push for Deliveroos, you know, like your digital kind of delivery services and stuff like that. And I think that's had an impact on a lot of young people as well, and the way that they spend or the way that they kind of decide how they're going to use their pound. So we spoke about it earlier, and for me, that had to go. That kind of, you know, okay, we've got busy lives, you know, I don't have time to cook. Let's just order Deliveroo. And sometimes you want to do that as a treat for your children as well. But I think getting into that system kind of it
kind of becomes the norm as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I don't think is normal.
It does.
It's a luxury. You don't need it. But, you know, going back to the whole, what is old-fashioned, what is not old-fashioned, what is modern, what's the next thing to do, you know, today we turn 18 and then we say we want my own space, I want my own house.
But they don't realise
But then you'd laugh at people that say, oh, you still live with your parents, how could you? But then people are forced to actually go back to live with their parents because they can't afford to pay rent, or they're being evicted because their landlord, like you mentioned before, has increased their rent by X amount and they won't be able to make the next rent. And that's the thing. Sometimes we think about old school things are so outdated, but there again, if we evaluate certain things, they're there to safeguard you. They're there to help you save money. And think about, if you're someone who wants their own space, you can get your own flat. It doesn't mean you can't, but then you're always going to be in the loop. You won't be able to actually save money for the future. And that's what's happening currently now. With the cost of living, you don't know whether to eat or what was it you said? Heat or eat?
Heat or eat.
Yeah, so that's another obstacle, I think. Maybe we got to go old school. I think there's nothing wrong with, you know, old is gold, as they say.
We've got to bring back the love.
Unity as well.
Unity.
And with this whole influence of I don't need anyone, or having the stigma of saying, oh, I'm a bit embarrassed to actually ask for support, when before it was just whenever you need it, just we're here for you. Yeah, we're here for you.
Yeah.
And people that were not your family, you'd consider them as family.
Exactly.
And someone you'd be so cautious of doing something, let's say naughty outside or playing tricks because you know your neighbor would tell your parents, or there was some sort of connection that, you know, there was a big
some sort of community.
Yeah.
And, you know, the kind of responsibility
that's
and
the thing.
Safeguarding as well, I think.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So when we're looking at what kind of interventions we can put in to help ease off the burden of cost of living, sometimes we don't have to come up with all these intricate ways of finding solutions, where it's just simple, the things that we've done or our parents or grandparents have done, and just revisit their era and implement those things. I think maybe people from different cultures might have different experiences that we can learn from. I think we're fortunate enough to live in a community where it's so diverse that we can learn from each other. So that's my view personally. What do you think, Hamza?
Yeah, to be honest, I've noticed as well within this borough specifically is that it's very community based, and you go towards certain areas within the borough and it's like, oh, hello, how are you? So I think obviously just kind of keeping that relation is great, because you just never know whenever that person may be in need or whatever, they may feel comfortable coming to you for that, or vice versa. So I think it's always important just to keep that unity there, and not trying to think that you can do everything alone, because I tell you what, life is tough at times. So you really need to kind of keep your people around you.
Yeah, and this is where this whole isolation talk comes about, you know, people doing or feeling isolated, lonely, feeling that they can't go on. And, you know, we have a resident in particular who they visit our centre, and if it wasn't for them kind of breaking away and kind of just being a part of the day-to-day buzz, you know, getting involved in conversations, etc., and they said that they would be kind of hitting the walls, really. That, you know, so it's about integrating, you know, it's about providing whether it's services or workshops or whatever it is, so that people can do, and people feel that they can come out, or courses that they might want to access. It's through conversation. And we're a borough, we love to talk. You know, we'll stand on the street for like 20 minutes having a conversation. You know, and people would just say, like, they'd walk down, they'd do their shopping, they'd come back and you're still talking, and you're like, yeah, you know. So it's that community sense. And the community is changing. You know, I'm from North Kensington, and I've seen lots of different changes up there. Lots of people moving, whether it's within the borough or out of the borough. And just a kind of a new wave of people moving into the north, and sometimes it's unrecognisable. Today I kind of see people suffering. So
would you say that's a younger generation?
What I said? No, I think children some have bad experiences in schools. Some have really, really good experiences in schools. You know, the community my daughter attends, you know, they're so tight, and they're so happy, and there's so much going on. Yeah, definitely. It's a brilliant community that celebrates diversity.
And it's good that you're just one of many organisations that is addressing this need. You know, we have different organisations as well that some people might not be aware of, and I'm sure you are well connected with different services, and if you might not have a certain solution, you'd know someone that, or an organisation that might be able to help, and you just signpost them. Signposting is a big thing. We might underestimate the power of it, and
definitely.
And you know, just sometimes it's the conversation that starts things off, and if you don't have that connection, like we said, that unity, you wouldn't know what a person may need going forward. You know,
because we even have like the solution sessions on a Friday that's open to people who live in RBKC, and that deals with housing. It deals with we have different housing providers, and the council actually, you know, housing department is there as well, so they can first-handedly understand what's going on, understand how they can improve services, understand how, you know, what needs are affecting people and what is constantly coming up for people. You know, I think when there's repetition and pattern of the same thing coming from people, you know, there's an alarm. The alarm has to be sounded, and there has to be efficient action, I think.
What do you think, Hamza?
I think that's a really good idea, because a lot of people come with issues they may be facing, and you know, we're always happy to help, but as you mentioned, like, finding solutions tends to be uncommon at times, you know. So I mean, having these workshops that you do is great, and I think obviously you guys are having that togetherness to find the solutions for these people, and hopefully within the future they may never need to face these trials that they're going through.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to ask both of you lot, actually. So did you want to say something?
No, this is exactly what it is. It's about empowering people. So not just having people kind of use our service and just kind of grab and go. It's about providing, whether it's digital inclusion, whether it's wellbeing courses. You know, we have chair yoga. That's been going on for years at our centre. We partner with Open Age so that, you know, the over 50s can have classes to do with like literature, writing, theatre, skills, etc., etc. And I think that it's really, really important that people come together and that people are able to identify what they're good at. And I think I always say, try it. Just keep trying, just try, because there'll come to a point where there will be something out there that will be meaningful, that you can actually expand your talents or capacities on. So yeah.
Great stuff. I was going to ask you, actually both of you questions.
Okay.
If you had to give maybe 4 to 5 tips on the things you can apply, or changes or adaptations that you could do that would help you navigate within the cost of living and to support yourself better.
Is that personally or is that just
Whether
generally?
It's up to you. If you want to respond from your personal standpoint, as you want to give your opinion, these are the tips that I would give to help you maneuver.
I would say, because we spoke about it before, like I had apps for food delivery on my phone.
That's number one.
Yeah, so
remove apps.
Doing away with certain apps that are like even Uber, for example, Uber Eats. We said Deliveroo.
So that's one.
That's one. Most definitely. As Hamza said, kind of going over your bank statement and kind of putting tabs on areas where you're feeling out of control of, you know, the money that's coming and going. Another one, cooking for family and friends. And also where, say, for example, you kind of create a network, so the burden isn't on one person. So you might invite friends over. If you're single, for example, you might invite friends over so you can cook, and another time they cook, but there's a system in place, and at least that kind of helps with isolation as well. And number 4, I'd say come to response. Come check us out.
I like that. Should we go over them? So 1, delete your apps that you tend to use for takeaway.
Definitely, or just for like even like Amazon, or, you know, misguided
small things you don't realise.
Yeah, the temptation, because everyone spends time on their phone so much on the train. Some people are like on their phone so much that they hit themselves into a lamppost, literally. So it's about just assessing what your weaknesses are and just trying to curb them in some way, one by one, whether it's through the app or whether it's stopping subscriptions and stuff.
Okay,
most definitely.
So that's one.
That's one.
Number 2 would be, you said, be connected with the community you're amongst. And then that would lead to different things such as finding out information, signposting, or finding out each other's interests and how you could thrive together or how you could go through this together. Number 3, you said cook for each other.
Yeah, so that's family.
Number 2 has to happen for number 3 to happen. You can't be cooking for no one if you don't have a community to give it to.
Exactly. And if you have children as well, like, and you've cooked, the children don't need to buy so much outside because there's always food at home. Do you see? And I think it also kind of, food is always comfort, isn't it? You feel love through food.
Exactly. And what was number 4? Number 4.
You mentioned the bank statement.
The bank statement.
I think the order has kind of been a little bit.
Yeah. But we just structured it. We just put it in order. So
Indeed.
Keeping track of your spending.
Keeping track of your spending. So if you're near to a Tesco Express, for example, or Express stores, they've been designed for you to kind of walk past and think, I need something, where you might not need it because you haven't prepared for the week. But it's about just understanding that impulse spending is an issue.
And number 5, go to response.
Well, that was number 4, but that's number 5. Come to response, and our doors are always open. So, yeah.
7 days a week? 5 days a week?
We're open we're always open. We're always open. There's always something going on in Response, 7 days a week at different times. But we are penciled into work. We went from 4 days down to 3 just for the moment. But, you know, we're still, we're always there. Always there.
Do you know what we'll do? We'll put the link to your website. So those of you who are watching and want to access the services or find out more about what Response do, please check in the description link below and we'll put it there. As to what I was saying before, so Hamza, I'll go to you.
I feel like I've run out of ideas. They're good ones. One of them that popped into mind is maybe if you've got Monzo or something that's similar, you can create pots and you can put in, obviously, your basic needs, your rent, your bills, etc. And then you see how much you've got left and what you can manage with throughout the month. As you mentioned as well, just regarding the family unity. So, I mean, if you're still living at home, like, just take advantage, you know, like, there's nothing better than home cooked food. From time to time, you're going to have your Uber Eats, your Deliveroo, but I think it's within your means, within your limits. I've running out of ideas now. Right, I feel like I've had one. If I think of any more,
no worries. So we'll go over them again just for clarity. 1, create different pots within your banking app, so you can keep track of what you want to spend or what you don't want to spend on. Number 2 was move back in with your family, because that's the better option rather than...
Was that an option?
I mean, if you're still at home...
Yeah.
You know, kind of...
utilise it.
Maybe just have double thoughts about trying to run away, you know, so quickly.
Well, I think that's what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
Or if I was wrong, please correct me.
But I think also
that's what I did
there
say.
shouldn't really be... especially in this day and age, like... Do you want to spend, say, 1,500 on rent, or do you want to, say, have the opportunity to kind of better yourself through education, always contributing to the family?
Money, yeah.
That too, reinvesting in, you know, your own kind of progression and stuff, but just kind of appreciating that it isn't a bad thing anymore, because it gives you the option or the capacity to save, I think.
I agree. I also want to add as well, maybe even if you're a parent or, you know, you want to learn, then go to mum or dad and maybe get tips on how to make, you know, even if it's just basic foods. So that way, when you are older, you kind of limit yourself off these delivery apps. So maybe some sort of like home education at home on tips of...
Home economics.
There you go. How to save.
That's it. I think, even then, even though sometimes maybe you want to find out how to cook something that your parents might not be familiar with, you always got YouTube. YouTube has been parenting a lot of kids these days. So when your parents are not there, you got YouTube. TikTok, you can find 60-second recipes that you can make. Definitely food is a big...
driver.
Yeah, food. We eat food pretty much for breakfast, lunch, dinner. We snack sometimes. And imagine you're doing that at the expense of just all, like, you're paying for everything. You don't make you don't make nothing, no meals, and you just go to Pret, you go to Domino's. You can't keep that up unless maybe you have unlimited resource of, you know, just money coming in.
Do you know what it is as well, though? It's the relationship we have between money and the digital era. So, you know, with the card and the phone where we just tap, we have no physical relationship with actually feeling the promissory notes that we have.
You're detached from
the
reality.
Money. Yeah, exactly.
So you get the change, and you know you count your 10p's. You go to the corner shop, and you know the KA used to be what? How much was it?
You know what? It was
39p, and you count up to 9p.
You know that?
Sorry.
From what I remember, started off at 35.
Yeah.
This was like secondary school days.
35p. You know it. It's intense.
I don't know how much it is these days.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's about probably 69. I don't drink that. But I think
or those 5p sweets that you get from the box, everyone's
True.
put their hands in. You know, it's now back
OCD
then it used to be
now.
1p. Back then it used to be back then it used to be 1p a sweet. I remember it. Then it was 5p. 5p's not too bad, you know. But
but I think if you've got £200 within like your hand, for example, and you actually go out and you spend, the money's actually disappearing, and you're actually connecting to that emotionally and physically. And I think with this whole kind of card or phone thing, there's no connectivity. So that's why we're always, kind of There's an
Yeah.
impulse to buy
Uh-huh.
and not really worry about how we're spending. Because, and also when you used to get your statements for the post for your bank, you'd pick up the statement and you kind of look through every single line. But because it's digital and it isn't actually physically in our hands, you scroll and you scroll and you scroll. But because it's more of an active type of daily type of check, it isn't like the monthly check where you're like, you sit down and you say, right, okay, what is the situation? This is, I've been I've been charged or I haven't been refunded. Get on the phone, speak to the organisation, etc.
Do you know what? One thing I'm
yeah,
going to shed some light on. Maybe it's in my generation when people order things off ASOS and they order it and then it comes and it's not something that they want. They just feel so lazy to return it. Say, I'm just going to throw it to the side. But then if it was a different generation, they would fight for their money back.
They would.
And they would actually call up customer service. That's allocate a specific time of day to chase it up. But I think with us, we're too laid back, which is like,
I think there's no time.
we don't
there is
appreciate.
time.
I don't think we appreciate.
There is time,
Yeah.
but because we've got like our phones, our laptops, we're constantly drawn into something else.
Yeah.
So the headspace is in a digital realm, and it isn't really as much unless you can discipline yourself to actually say, right, okay, this is how much I'm going to spend of my day, whether it's an hour journaling and stuff like that or whatever. It depends, because there's always something that's going on that's kind of capturing attention.
You're right. I think, like you said, our headspace is somewhere else, but I think the cost of living has brought us back to reality. In a way.
In some instances.
Maybe for some people.
I think so. With some people, it's a little wake-up call to think, this is what I've been doing. I can't believe I've been doing this.
And some people have thrived. Through COVID, you had some people who thrived. And then you had other people who were dealing with like families and relatives in the hospitals. The real emotional level on many different fronts.
That's it, yeah.
So it's how we equip ourselves and it's the support that we can access in order to do that also.
That's great. So I think this conversation's been literally great. I've learned a lot about the services that obviously you do, your experiences, as well as yourself, Hamza, the things that you've spoken about. We're going to wrap up now.
Okay.
It's been a good conversation. Any last message from both of you? If you don't have one, it's fine. But if you do want to leave something with the audience who are watching, it would be appreciated. Is there anything that you'd like to share? I'll start with you, Sheraine.
I would say it's a very simple and easy thing to say in regard to like suffering alone, but do your research. I'd also say education. There are lots of free digital courses online, and if you because some people can start at the bottom and really kind of become the leader of big corporations. We've seen it happen in many different instances, but start at the bottom, get your firm standing, access as many free courses as you can, access even certificate-based courses, and then just work your way up. The digital realm is something that we can't kind of shy away from, but I think that there needs to be a stronger level of digital, I don't want to call it intelligence, but just digital
understanding?
Upskilling. Sorry?
I said understanding. But...
Understanding, upskilling and stuff.
Okay. Thank you. And Hamza?
I would say you really need to be disciplined within yourself. You don't want to be in a headspace where you feel as if you're just doing whatever with your money. So the change starts within you. Have an understanding of your finances and what you are spending, and just really dig deep and see where you can save your money. And these small changes leads to big impacts.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good discussion. I appreciate your points that you put across. And I think that is it for another episode of Powered by You. If you enjoyed what you have seen today, please check out the radio version on morleyradio.co.uk, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.